Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for being here. Welcome. My name is Margot Parmenter, and I'm the events coordinator at the Hub City Bookshop. We're so excited to have you join us tonight for a conversation about author Vanessa Miller's new book, Something Good. Here is copy right here. The book is an inspirational story about three women who find hope and connection in the wake of a terrible mistake, and it explores how something good can come from even the most tragic of events. It was just released on Tuesday, and it's beautiful, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. If you haven't purchased your copy yet, know that you can click that green button that says buy your signed copy and order it through our shop. Before I start interviewing Vanessa about her book and her process, I want to introduce the bookshop a little bit for anyone in the audience who doesn't know. The Hub City Bookshop is a full-service independent bookstore serving the vibrant literary community of upstate South Carolina. We're part of the larger organization of the Hub City Writers Project, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to cultivate readers and nurture writers. We do that by publishing original titles through our press, as well as by sponsoring a variety of literary programming in our community, including writers' workshops, book clubs, and author conversations like this. If you want to find out more about any of these upcoming events, please head to our website, hubcity.org, and sign up for our newsletter. I also want to remind everybody to feel free to ask questions. Some time will be reserved to answer them. And Vanessa's a really experienced author. She has a lot of publications. So if you have questions for published authors, don't miss your chance to ask. You can use the Ask a Question button that's at the bottom of your screen, or you can also put your questions into the chat, and we'll reserve some time to answer them at the end. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our author. Vanessa Miller is a best-selling author with several books that have appeared on Essence Magazine's bestsellers list. She's also been a Black Expressions Book Club alternate pick and a #1 on the BCNN BCBC bestsellers list. Most of Vanessa's published novels depict characters that are lost and in need of redemption. The books have received countless favorable reviews. Visit her online at vanessamiller.com. So, Vanessa, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited about tonight. I'm just thrilled. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
I want to just congratulate you on your beautiful book. How's it been going? It just pubbed on Tuesday. So how's the author tour going?
It is going really well. I am excited. You know, it's been 10 years since I've had a book published through a traditional publisher. So I haven't been on tour in a long time. And so I'm just excited about every moment that is happening, because it's like, yes, I'm back. Something good. Yes.
It's a really beautiful book. But you are, as you said, so it's been 10 years, but you've certainly published a lot
Yes.
in your career as a writer. Can you talk a little bit about your career up to this point?
Oh, yes, indeed. So my first book came out in 2003, and that title was Former Rain. And I have the whole Rain series. But what happened with me was the first 3 books, Former Rain, Abundant Rain, and Latter Rain, I self-published. I just got out there, got on the road, and just started telling people about this Rain series. And my readers just loved it. And it was word of mouth that just began to spread. And so people were attached to the Rain series. And so I'm praying that word of mouth also spreads about Something Good. So after that, a person that I was touring with, she and I, kept connecting on different tour spots, and she became an editor with Urban Christian, which was a part of Kensington. And so she brought me on as an author with them. And so that was my first traditional publisher. And so since then, I've been published by, now 5 publishers, but at that point it was 4 different publishers. And then around 2012, I just started self-publishing novellas on my own. And so now I am back as a traditionally published author. And one of the main reasons why I was interested in coming back as a traditionally published author is because my readers kept emailing me and asking me, and they were like, well, why don't we see your books in the bookstores anymore? And so I wanted to make that happen for my readers, because I was like, now if you're looking for them and you're asking me, that I need to do something about this. And so I'm very happy to be back published and to have my books in bookstores again.
Well, we're really excited to have you. We're excited to have you back. And just for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, often when you open a book, you see the author's other works that they've had published, and it's usually just a few on a page. But Vanessa has several pages, so so she's been writing for a long time. Did you always know that you wanted to be a writer?
I've known since I was 9 years old. I was sitting on my grandmother's porch with my father, and I tell the story to people because he told me a story about something that seemed so beautiful, but at the end of the story, I discovered he was talking about a rat, and at that moment, I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to be able to turn the hideous into something that's beautiful. And my name, Vanessa, means butterfly. So I believe it's a combination of things, because what is a butterfly? At the beginning, it's a caterpillar. And when it goes in its cocoon stage, then it becomes this beautiful butterfly that everyone wants to behold, but nobody wants that caterpillar crawling around. And so, yeah, so those are the stories that I write. I write about people that, are they're flawed characters. And then I show you how when God comes in the middle of their situation, how they blossom, how they become beautiful, how they become this butterfly.
Oh, that's such a wonderful way of putting it. I really got that from this book. I
Yes.
really got, the characters are so there are three main characters. Well, why don't as we get into talking about the book, why don't I let you give sort of a rundown of what the book is about, what inspired you to write it, and then we can dig more deeply into the specifics of what's happening, because I'm excited to talk about like each character and what they go through and the themes of the book.
Right. Well, what was inspiring me, even with the title, Something Good, was I started writing this book and we were in the pandemic. We were in the beginnings of the pandemic and everything was awful. If you remember on the news, every time you turned it on, there was this ticker that kept ticking down about how many people were dying, how many people had COVID. It was awful and it was bad. And all I thought was, we just need something good. And so that's why I titled it Something Good. And the theme that runs through this book is hope. Because I knew at that time what we really needed was hope. And I wanted this book to bring that to readers as they see what these characters go through and how they are able to come out on the other side, that they begin to say for themselves, yes, I can do this. I can come out on the other side as well. And now this book does not deal at all with the pandemic. I was just saying that it's what inspired the need for hope in the book. And so it's three different characters: Trish, Marquita, and Alexis. And I love each one of them for different reasons. They are very different people. And I deal with different economic backgrounds for each person. I deal with poverty, middle class, and I deal with affluence. And I wanted to do that because then I wanted to show how, you tend to think, okay, if someone's in poverty, yes, they have a lot of problems, but you don't necessarily connect someone that, has a lot. As far as finances, that they would have a lot of problems. And when I delved into Alexis and discovered all that she was going through, the money didn't matter to her because her life was still upside down until she figured out who I loved. how she came into her own and figured out who she was and accepted her for who she truly is. And I loved her character. I loved Trish, because Trish was the one to me who centered everyone in the book. She was the prayer, and it is her prayer for something good that is the catalyst that brings all of them together. Yeah. And Marquita is your problem child. and, and she's got a lot of problems, and she is just going to let you know about it. And Marquita is just, I mean, I had so much fun writing her. I mean, I cracked up on just about every scene she was in, except for her sad scenes, of course.
She always has the eye roll. She has the eye roll. That's her signature move.
Yes.
Each of the characters, I think, to me, were, as you said, they're from different neighborhoods, different economic backgrounds, different races, but they all feel very naturalistic. They feel very real. They feel very lived in. Can you talk about whether you were inspired and how you're able to like embody? Were you inspired by real people, or how can you write so naturally about such different people? There's 3 different sort of like main characters, and they all just feel so well-rounded.
Right. Well, I will say that Trish's name is my mother's name, which my mother, her name was Patricia. And Trisha's mom is my grandmother's name. My grandmother's name was Lillian, and they called her sister. So every time I wrote Trisha's scene, it felt like, I was coming home, and revisiting, my family that, they are now no longer here. And so I miss them dearly. And so that was special to me to be able to write those scenes. So it's not necessarily about anyone, but it's, it was just, to me, each person, as they sat down next to me basically and just poured out their story, I was just so intrigued that it didn't have to be about a real person that I knew, because I knew for sure that there are people like this, and there are people who are going through situations like the characters were going through, not necessarily with the accident, but, the different other parts of the book that, people are going through. So I knew people would be able to identify with these characters, because as I was writing them, I was identifying with them, and I was just going like, wow, yeah, I see you. I see, and I understand. And so that was important to me, that they come off as real people with real issues, because I believe we have a real God who is able to come in and help them. And I believe that prayer works. And so that's why I put it in the book about prayer.
Wonderful. So for people who haven't read the book yet, can you give us a little sense of the plot? I mean, I don't want you to do any spoilers, but can you kind of tell us what happens and how these 3 characters get entangled in each other's lives?
Right. So at the very beginning, there's a car accident. And this car accident is what brings these 3 people together, because each one of these women are connected to John. John is the person who Alexis hits John as they were both driving, and he becomes paralyzed. So Marquita is connected with John, and Trish is John's mother. And so this is how come all 3 of them find each other as they, as their situations circle around this one young man. I'm trying not to give too much away.
I know, it's really hard. I mean, I don't think you gave anything away. All of that's on the back cover. So,
yes.
So I think you're good. So another thing that I thought was interesting is the setting of this book because it's set in Charlotte,
Yes.
and I'm in Spartanburg. It's not that far away from Charlotte, and you live in Charlotte now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So can you speak to how the setting influences the story? One of the things I thought when I was reading is that it feels like a realistic place for these people to actually, it's a big place with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different economic classes. And so I thought, oh, it actually feels realistic that all these people would have become engaged with each other in a place
Yeah.
like Charlotte.
Well, one thing with Charlotte, you can live on one side of town, and the reason why I will tell like there's a hospital scene where Marquita meets up with Alexis, and you would think, well, why would they be at the same hospital? Well, here in Charlotte, it is just, they will tell you, okay, well, we can get you an appointment, and here are the different hospitals you can go to. And I live on one side of town, and I have driven all the way 50 minutes away for a doctor's appointment because they're like, well, this is where they can get you in, and this is how the system works here. It's like Atrium or Novant, and here you can go to any of the Atrium places, if it's just like if it's a visit, like you're not visiting your regular doctor, but for like different things, they just have all these. So that's how the hospital system works. And so that's how I was able to connect them at the same hospital, and they do not live in the same neighborhood, but it's just that this is how Charlotte does with their with their hospitalization stuff. And also with Charlotte, it is a big city, and this is something I've had to get used to moving here because I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I'm from like a small town where it's like, okay, I'm just going to drive right down the street. Here, you want to go anywhere, it's going to be 20, 25, 30 minutes. And that's just, when you're just trying to get over of here. But you can also drive about 50 minutes and you are still in Charlotte. And so that's how come I was able to, when I even mapped out, how long it would take them to get to certain places, because this is just how big Charlotte is. And so I wanted to give that feel for people. It's not a small town at all. And so it was really like a shell shock for me when I moved here, because I was like, what? I have to go 45 minutes around town to get to this location I have to be at. That was kind of crazy, but I'm used to the thought now.
Yeah, that is crazy. I'm actually from Ohio too. I'm from the Cleveland area and came
Okay.
down here not that long ago. So yeah, but Charlotte is still, honestly, if I've only go there for like, a little, like a weekend or like a little trip, and it is a little intimidating. The traffic, which is something that comes up in the book, is really crazy.
It really is. And matter of fact, okay, distracted driving is what I have in the book, and dealing with the crazy traffic. And the reason I decided on one of the things being distracted driving is because in 2015, on that same road, Pineville Matthews, a car hit me head on. And I'm thankful to be alive, but my ankle was broke in that accident, and so I have never walked the same since. I always have to have a little thing on my ankle in order to, but I can walk. So I'm grateful for that. But it was an operation and all of this, and it happened because he dropped his cell phone and he bent down to pick it up, and then he lost control of his car, just like Alexis does in the book. And so I really wanted to bring light to distracted driving, because it can kill and it can maim, it can, and John becomes paralyzed. And so And it's a real thing. It's a real issue. And especially these days when we have these smartphones, smartphones are wonderful for certain things, but all the texting, see, I'm old enough to remember where texting was not, we didn't know anything about texting. You had to go home to get your phone call. They had to actually call you to tell you what they needed, and you had to be at home in order to get it, because these things didn't exist. And so it wasn't until like probably what I think my early 20s when I actually got a cell phone. Now my grandkids, they have cell phones. They're just kids.
Like tiny kids. I know. It's really crazy.
It really is. And you think about it, I'm like, we didn't even need this stuff. It was like you just go home. School is out, go straight home. That's where you are. And there was a saying when I was a kid, don't let the street lights catch you. It was like, if those street lights came on, you better be home. And so, but nobody had a phone to call and say, hey, I'm a little bit late, or to text. But texting and driving, I say, and I tell people, it can wait. You have a little text, you have a text because the phone beeps and you're driving. It's no harm to wait until you come to a stoplight, or when you park your car, because I guarantee you it's not an emergency. It's just something somebody is telling you, and you don't have to answer it at that moment if you're driving. And if we could all begin to understand that, I think there will be a lot less accidents.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was going to ask you where the inspiration for including that theme in your book came from. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yes.
I think it relates to another theme. There are so many themes in the book, and I want to talk about all of them. But which is really this sort of tragedy, and I thought that distracted driving was a particularly interesting thing to choose because, of course, Alexis is at fault. She shouldn't have been distracted, but it doesn't feel as bad as like a drunk driver. It feels much more common, and
Right.
therefore more tragic, sort of more
Mhm.
like something that could kind of happen to any of us.
Any of us. It
Yeah.
could, because it wasn't like she wasn't on the road intentionally thinking of doing harm to someone. And her personality, she's not like that. She has a personality, she wants to help people, especially because of the childhood she had. So to her, to have brought harm to someone, it kind of just destroys her from the inside. And so any of us could have that happen if we're not careful. It only takes a moment to lose control, because I tell people, that car, it's not a toy. You really have to be mindful when you're on the road, because there's other people's lives that are at stake when you're driving.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of feels a little bit like a metaphor for existing in the world with other people. That if you're not responsible for yourself and you're not mindful, I mean, everything you do can impact other people in the world, for
Correct.
positive or for good.
That's what.
And then the other side of the tragedy is, of course, Trish and Dwayne and John, who suffer this tragedy through no fault of their own. He just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I don't think this is giving too much away. He has a promising football career that is
Yes.
sort of destroyed by this event. And
Yes.
Trish and Dwayne, who are the parents of John, they have really different reactions to tragedy. Can you talk about their marriage and kind of their relationship?
Oh yes. Well, they had always been able to just get along really, really good, because life was going good for them. They middle class. They have a home that they love. They worked hard to be able to get this home, and their son was off to college. They thought things are good, and then this tragedy happens. Trish has to quit her job. The finances become tight, and this becomes a struggle that the two of them don't know how to deal with together. And so they really struggle with just different arguments and things like that. And I wanted to show just realism of marriage to people, to understand that every day is not sunshine in a marriage. There are times when you go through, but if you guys love each other and you know how to compromise, and you are realistic, you can come back together. And so I wanted to show how Trish and Dwayne were able to bring their marriage back together, because it was looking like it was falling apart.
It was. I think this is another. I thought that marriage was another theme in the book, and that
Yes.
the two married. Well, there's really three relationships. So there's Trish and Dwayne, who are kind
Mhm.
of at the heart of this. They're going through this tragedy, and then Alexis and her husband, who I think
Right.
have a slightly younger marriage than
Yes.
Trish. Yeah,
Yes.
and then John and Marquita, who are very early in their relationship, like at the very beginning. So you sort of have those three different
Yes.
types of marriage, three stages of marriage. And it did feel very, very lived in to me, that each marriage was really unique and distinct, but they all have challenges. And so often,
Yes.
especially like the books I read growing up, when you get married is when it ends. So we don't get to
Right.
see what happens in the
Those are
relationship.
the romances. Those are the romances that tell us, oh, it's just happily ever after. And they don't ever tell us about how do two really become one in a marriage. When you get together, now you have two different opinions on things. You have two different ways of thinking about things, and you guys have to be able to sit down and come together. So those romances never tell us how to work out this marriage. They only walk us up into the actual wedding, and then we're going, oh, but they don't know the struggle. That's where the struggle begins. Because everybody is now, you're married, you're in the house, and now you're yourself. This is who you are. There's no more pretending. So now you guys have to deal with each other. And for Alexis, her issue with her marriage was she always felt inferior, and she had this attitude of, she had to be grateful to her husband because he brought her out of a rough childhood, a rough time in life. She was a waitress when she met him, and he was the one who had the money. And it never dawned on her until later that she also had something that she was giving to this relationship. So she just thought she was beholden to him for that. And so that's why with Alexis, I love how she began to figure things out.
I loved that too. I thought that I want to read like a little portion from the book that
Okay.
has to do with it's when she has moved her mother. So Alexis decides later on in the book she's going to move her mother into the house, and her husband is very against this idea because her mother is mentally ill and he doesn't like the way
Yes.
it looks. He's very
Right.
obsessed with appearances. And so it just says, that night, while Vivian slept the night away, Alexis barely slept at all. Michael wasn't speaking to her, and she didn't know what to do about that. How could she get her husband to care about the things that concerned her? All through their marriage, it had been her job to care about what concerned Michael. Now she needed them to switch roles just for a little while. I thought that was just it really moved me. I thought that was such
Yeah.
an interesting way and because it's really brave what she does. I mean,
Yes.
when she starts to stand up for herself, I really thought her husband was probably going to leave.
Correct. And it was her saying, I still have to be who I really am, whether you walk out the door or not. But then it was her having to recognize that she had value in this relationship as well. And
Yeah.
so I loved her character. I just absolutely did.
Yeah, she's a great character. It's really interesting. The other thing that I think is sort of relates to marriage, to the theme of marriage, is just the theme of values and behavior and like appropriate behavior. And that's kind of one of the things that I thought I saw coming through with Alexis, is that she has her own values, and as you said, she's like a very caring, warm-hearted person,
Yeah.
and she starts to speak up for those values in her marriage, and I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting and maybe related to like a theme that you were trying to bring through in the book, just the importance of like doing the right thing. And that she really wants to go and make amends with Trish and Dwayne and John, and her husband doesn't want her to. And I don't know, can you speak to that a little bit about sort of how that works out and what message you wanted to send?
And it's just like what you're saying. It's important to do the right thing, and I believe doing the right thing brings you peace. And it's not peace for the other person. Even it's peace for you, because I believe we were created to know what is right. And so when we're off of that, and when we're not doing what is right, I don't believe we can truly feel good about ourselves for that. And so that's what I wanted to show with Alexis. Even though Alexis doesn't have a relationship with God like Trish does, but she still feels compelled to do what is right, even though at times she didn't know how to do it, because she was so beholden to her husband, and she felt like, well, everything they have he has given them, and now she's brought him a problem. And it's not until she really discovers, well, this man really doesn't even deserve what he has, because he basically, I can't say it because I don't want to, she's like, oh, okay, no, you're the problem here.
It's really great. I mean, the plot is very well written. I was very like entranced, very engaged with how the plot unfolds and how it develops. And so we definitely don't want to give those
Right.
plot points away. But I think another theme that I wanted to ask you about is something you just touched on, which is that some of the characters have a religious faith, a relationship with God, and then some of
Mhm.
them don't. How do you go about kind of carving those characters? And I mean, I think one of the things that's beautiful about it is there's something good happens for everyone, even the people who don't have this religious faith. So how do you go about kind of making those authorial decisions?
I wanted to write it realistically, because I know everyone does not have this relationship with God. And so, but I wanted to tell it through the prism of hope coming through the prayer from someone who does have a relationship with God. And I believe, just being in the vicinity of someone who prays, because I believe prayer is important, can help the next person. And that's kind of like what I was really trying to show, like, this thing can blossom just from one person taking the time to pray.
Hmm. That's wonderful. That's so, yeah, it really does. It's almost like more than one something good ends up happening. A lot of something good
Yes,
ends up
a lot of
happening
something
in the
good.
book. It's really very inspirational and very uplifting. So I don't know if it would be coming down from that inspirational moment to talk about mental health, but mental health is like another thing that happens in the book, and I thought it was quite fun. There's like a portion toward the end where they've decided to get help for one of the characters who has mental health issues in the book, and Trish has a different outlook on what the character needs, and so I thought that was quite a good bit of character
Yeah,
detail. That
I
was really
chuckled. I chuckled when I think that's another one of my laugh out loud moments when I was writing it. And I was just like, so I'm not going to say what Trish says.
But how does because you said you talked a little bit about how distracted driving came in as a theme. Does mental health come in as a theme? Is it something that you're passionate about seeing, people respond to mental health in the world more largely, or did it just happen to work for your characters?
I think it worked for my characters, but to me, I've been noticing a theme, even in the news, in different medias that you're looking at, that a lot of people are suffering from different types of illnesses, depression, just different anxiety, different things. And I just believe they're just so troubled by all of the things that's going on in the world. And so it was important for me to bring that theme in, because sometimes I think, and with this particular character you were talking about, it's really undiagnosed. Yeah. And so the family is wondering, why are they so unstable? And they just blame her, but they don't understand that this was a behavior that she didn't know how not to do because of her condition. And I brought it in two different ways. Well, one, you already knew this was what was going on, but the other one, it was undiagnosed, so you didn't know at first that was her issue. And so I wanted to kind of play off of both of those, one undiagnosed and one where the family was dealing with an illness, and the way they chose to deal with it is to hide it away instead of love on this person and appreciate them for who they are. And I believe when Alexis came to that point, it was some of the best times of her life. With this, I don't want to give away the book.
It's interesting too. I thought so. Basically, at some point in the book, Alexis kind of had been disconnected from her mom, and she reconnects with her mom. And I thought it was interesting to see how that reconnection really seems to play a causal role in her standing up to her husband, coming into her own. So that was kind of was the relationship between mothers and daughters. Were you thinking about that when you were writing?
Definitely. Mothers and daughters is a thing, because I use it with all three women and let you see how their relation, Marquita has a very dysfunctional relationship with her mother. Trish has her relationship with her mother is, my mother's always telling me what to do. And I really did take that part from This Is Me and my daughter, because my daughter feels like I'm always telling her what to do. And I really kind of am. And so I was like, okay, so I knew how that felt. And so I was like, let me put this in here. And that was kind of like, a smile at, kind of like the conversations I have with my daughter. And Alexis and her mom. Alexis really became the adult in the relationship with her mom. So I try to show it in three different ways of mother and daughter relationships, but I also show how Alexis even later begins to appreciate her mom and remember certain things, and how she begins to understand, because I believe that a mother's love, there's nothing like a mother's love. So even with Marquita, and her mother, and as far out as her mother was, she loved her kids. She just didn't know how to do the right thing for them. Yeah. And so I wanted to make that clear also, that this was a woman who kept striving to have her family with her, even with her unstableness. So
yeah. I definitely, that definitely comes through, and it's a very interesting and subtle, sort of subtle, I don't know, just subtle thing to write as an author, that, that like, people are doing their best and there's a lot of love, but they sometimes fail at getting it
Right,
right, despite
right.
being loving. And I thought that, this is kind of one of the through lines of the novel that's a little more funny, is Marquita struggling to hold a job because she has an attitude where she's always sort of getting in fights with the people that she works with.
She self-destructs often.
And I thought that was so wonderful. Can you speak a little bit to kind of that plot point, or to sort of Marquita's arc as a character?
Marquita's arc began with, just a funny situation. And it was one of my family members. I remember her calling me, after losing a job, and she's like, oh, just let me go. And so I was just laughing about it later because it wasn't funny at the moment. But then I was like, oh, I'm going to build a character that doesn't get why they keep getting fired. But everyone else will get it when they see this character. They'll be like, oh, okay, this is the issue. So yes, Marquita did start out from known information, but not her. She is not the other person, but it was just like my little funny moment.
And I love that too. There's a scene at the end of the book, as she's developing as a character, where Trish tells her, which I've heard as a Maya Angelou quote, "When you know better, you do better." And
Mm.
it's a wonderful theme, because she starts to learn, she spends time with Trish, she starts to know better, but it's still hard to do better. Just knowing
Yes.
doesn't automatically make you do better. She still has some struggles. She still has to, try to get along with her coworkers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that was
Because
really
I wanted to show her as real as, because people don't always, you tell them the right thing and they don't always just, oh, I get that. And let me just go live that out. They may try, but when you haven't had any type of structure, it's hard to then maintain structure that is needed to be a fully functioning adult. And so you're going to have setbacks and you're going to have struggles with that. And so I wanted to show her real and really struggling with trying to do the right thing once she figured out, oh yeah, I'm the problem.
That's always a tough moment for any of us, the realization that it's us. Because first it gives you a little more control, but then it also gives you responsibility for fixing it, which is tough.
Yes. Yes.
So I have to ask the question that authors always get asked: is this just a standalone, or are we going to see more from any of these characters?
Something Good is a standalone book, but you never know, because I love these characters so much. They may appear in another book, just like a cameo or something, but this is a standalone. And yeah, I kind of wish it was a series, but I think I gave you all of their story in these 100,000 words.
It was everything. I do feel like we got the whole story. As much as I love these characters and would love to see them again, we got the story. So are you working on something else
I am. My next book comes out in November of this year, and it is titled What We Found in Hallelujah. And so it is, again, three women, and I don't want to give too much of their story away, but it is Hallelujah, South Carolina. This is the first time I make up my own town, and it is a beach town, and they're coming home and basically to face what has happened, because it was three sisters, but one is missing.
now?
And so they're coming home to deal with their hurts, their accusations, their what they perceive as their failures, their faults in what has occurred, and also dealing with their mother who lies a lot. And so they must try to get her to finally tell the truth about something.
That sounds excellent. Okay, so everybody look out for that in
What
November.
we found in Hallelujah in November.
Wonderful. So now, if it's okay with you, I'm going to transition to the part where I ask a lot of questions that are writer related, author related, advice for writers. So, what is the advice you have for young writers who haven't been published yet and who are just starting out? What's the best advice you have for them?
To learn the writing craft. I feel like I truly became a writer after I finished my first novel, which became Former Rain. But I found an editor who was an independent editor, and she cost $1,000. Now this is 20 years ago, and so I'm thinking, I have to pay all this money, and I'm saying to myself, this book is already good. All she's gonna do is send it back to me and tell me, oh, it's great. And I've just given her all this money. Well, she ripped that book up one side and down the next. And a comment she said to me, and it's been over 20 years ago, and I still haven't forgotten it. She said, there's a reason why our writers write what they know. Basically telling me I didn't know what I was talking about in the book. And so from that comment, I learned that you must research your characters. Before you can put a character on page, you need to understand, their occupation. You need to understand who they are, what they will do, what they won't do. So you need to build a character arc for each one of your characters. But so after I finally went back through all of her edits, because I put the book aside for a few years and wouldn't even look at it until my daughter basically called me out, because she said, I thought you said you were a writer. And I said, I am a writer. And she said, she was 8 years old at this time. No, she may have been 10. And she said, well, don't writers have books? And I was like, I'm going to show her. And so I pulled the book back out, the manuscript, and I went to work on it. And at that point, I began to understand what this editor was saying to me. And when I sent it back to her, the editor said, you went from wanting to write to being a writer, and there's a world of difference between the two. And so I say to new writers, you may have this gift of writing, because I knew I always had a gift for writing, but there is a skill that must be learned. Yeah. And so take time to learn the skill of writing, read books on writing, even if you work with an editor, but you must find one that is willing to, call you and really tell you this does not work. And then you begin to cut your work up and figure out how this actually goes. And so that's the best advice I can give.
That's really great advice. That's excellent advice. What is your process like now? What's your writing process like?
Well, I'm a big procrastinator. So I'll sit in front of the computer, and then I may play solitaire, and then and then I go over to social media, and I'm like, oh, but I need to promote. And so I'll go and promote, and then I'll say, oh, you have to write. And so then I come back and I sit there and I'll write for hours. But it's always in my mind, the first thing, just write first. But answering emails, because I'll procrastinate on it, but sometime during that day, I get it done. I've got over 50 books now.
Yeah, I love that response, because it's very real. It's very honest. I think most of us are procrastinators, right? So
Yes, so I try to work on my procrastination and just make myself. I say, okay, I'm going to give you a few moments to go over here and do this. Okay, you need to get your mind adjusted. Go ahead, but you must write.
I think
And
those are two. I'm going to put them in the chat so that people who watch later learn the craft of writing. And it's okay to procrastinate, but only for a little bit.
yes.
Awesome. So we do have a question from the audience. This audience member asks, will you write any books about men and their issues and how women have to deal with those different struggles?
And how women, I have written books that have men as the lead characters.
Okay.
And that's my family business series. But yeah, well, in every book you'll find how women have to deal with men's issues, because you have to put that in the book, and I definitely put it in something good as far as with Trish and Dwayne and with Alexis and Michael. So you'll see in there how they see their husband's issues and how they have to deal with them, and vice versa, because Dwayne sees his wife's issues and then he begins to change his behavior to try to show her that, okay, yes, we're going through something, but I still love you. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So it's family business, the one that is male protagonist. Do you have trouble writing a male protagonist as a female writer, or is it just a matter of, like you said, doing the research and knowing your characters?
I think the biggest trouble with writing the male is, as a woman, is making sure you get the conversation right with a man. Is how would a man say this, as opposed to how a woman would say something, because we're different people. And so where a woman would be long-winded about something, a man just wants to get to the point. And so I hope I am able to capture that. I'm not gonna say I'm always, 100% able to get the male's voice across, because I'm a woman, but I definitely do try. I try my best. Yeah. Well, what do you think as what you read with the men that were in here? Was it okay?
I thought they were very realistic. Yeah, I thought the men were. I really liked Trish and Dwayne, and how she just she just gets fed up, and she kind of just starts to, she's doing her own thing. She is like, this man is driving me crazy. And I thought it was very realistic that he sort of notices and he tries to start doing some of the things that she needs, right? He tries. That struck me as very, men don't often talk about it so well. They're not great at like coming and saying the things that are going on with them, but he tries to do what she needs and shows up for her, and that helps to like heal. Whereas, I don't know, as a woman myself, I'd want to talk it to death, just like you said. But men, I thought that was very realistic. Men don't talk things to death.
Right. It is. It really is, though, because that is the male. Instead of just going, I'm sorry, he'll go and, oh, let me go wash these dishes for her. or let me go and do this, because he knows, you'll see that he's trying to do something, trying to be helpful, instead of him saying, I'm sorry. That's right there is his I'm sorry. Whereas we're like, no, we're supposed to sit down and we're supposed to talk about this and we're supposed to say those words, and then we're supposed to now let's process what happened here and why we're sorry. No, they don't do that.
And I loved their little, for readers who are definitely going to click buy your signed copy, come by the shop, get your signed copy. There are little, very realistic details about the marriage. Like, she has favorite foods that he, doesn't pick up on, and then he does. And those little details, because I think anyone who's been in a long-term relationship or been married knows, like, those are things that, like, you take note of after a while. Like, he's not doing this for me, so he doesn't really love me. And I just thought I teach writing to students as an internship right now, and those little details make characters real. So I'm
Yes.
excited for everyone to buy the book and uncover what those little details are.
I'm so glad you got that. That is, yes. I wanted to put those in as just little bits and pieces, because that is what you go through in marriage. You're like, oh, you're just gonna fix it your way. Oh, okay. I'm supposed to eat that now. And I'm a real person over here, and I don't eat those type of things that you like on your sandwich. But it's supposed to be okay, right?
I thought it was so wonderful. Vanessa, it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Congratulations on your return to traditional publishing. Yeah, and we wish you so much success and so much happiness on the tour. And everyone, buy your book today.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. And yes, please click that button. Buy your book. You will enjoy something good. There are so many nuggets in this book that you will be able to take away from reading this, and it's gonna give you some feel good moments. And don't we all need that now?
Absolutely. Everybody could use a feel good moment at a time like this. And yeah, we deserve it. So thank you so much for writing this book. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.